She's been missing for nearly a month. A 4-year-old British girl, Madeleine McCann, disappeared in a Portuguese resort while her parents dined about 50 yards away. That's about half the distance of a football field. Today, new cell phone video shot by a family friend shows little Madeleine dressed in pink boarding a flight to Portugal. Then Madeleine with family friends after the group arrived. That video is the last known moving image of the little girl since May the 3rd.
It's hard to look at. Now, tomorrow the parents will meet with Pope Benedict, hoping to bring more attention to this case. But are they partly at fault here? It's, the anguish here is incredible. It's every parent's nightmare. We're going to hook up now with social worker Gary Darrenfield, who we lovingly call the Leonard Maltin of social work, back on Live at 5:30. Gary, it is a toughie, isn't it? We all feel for the parents, but at the same time, there's some responsibility here that, let's get your opinion. I think we know the answer here.
How can we not feel for these parents? It's every parent's worst nightmare. Having said that, they're culpable for their daughter's disappearance.
Just the circumstances for viewers that aren't aware. Now, they say they were literally 50 yards away from their room at this courtyard restaurant, and they were dashing back and forth throughout the course of the meal, checking in on the 5th or 6th check-in. That's when Madeleine was gone.
Apparently they were checking in on a half-hour basis. So quite frankly, it wouldn't matter if you were 50 yards or 50 miles away. They had a 4-year-old and twin 2-year-olds left alone in the hotel room. Twin 2-year-olds. Either one of these children could have choked on a little toy within a minute's time and been found dead. Forget the disappearance of the 4-year-old. You just don't neglect your children that way.
Okay, I'm sure the parents are absolutely beside themselves. How about some suggestions for parents who, and I know a lot of them, and I'm one of them, leave their kids alone? Not that young, but Gary, what are some of the guidelines for leaving your kids alone?
Well, you definitely aren't going to leave a 4-year-old and 2-year-old to their own devices. You just don't do that. They don't have the cognitive capacity to understand danger, to reach out for help, to take care of themselves. Doesn't happen. And in fact, not until a child is 8, 9, 10 years of age do they have a real inkling of the dangers that can befall them. And then it's not until they're maybe 11, 12, 13 years of age do they truly feel safe in their own mind. Now, a 9-year-old might say, oh, I feel safe. That's bravado. They haven't a clue what they're feeling safe against. But by the time you're 11, 12, and 13, then you have some appreciation of the dangers out there. You've been street-proofed, you've been house-proofed, you've got a laundry list of names that you can call. It becomes safer to leave a child of those ages unattended.
Just legally though. Legally, what happens if, for example, you got a 9-year-old at home, both parents are working, the 9-year-old comes in after school, opens up the door with the key, makes their own after-school snack, watches television or does homework. Are the parents culpable here? Is 9 an okay age to let your kid come home by themselves? I know a lot of people that did, the previous generation, I don't know so often now, but is that okay?
Here in the jurisdiction of the province of Ontario, under our child welfare legislation, there isn't a hard and fast number that says below this age the child cannot be unattended.
Should there be? Because we have that in some U.S. states. Illinois, for example,
it winds up needing to be a bit of a judgment call. So you have that 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old. You have to ask yourself, what are the circumstances that this child is being left here? What is the safety plan that is in place? What is the supervision that is available to that child, be it from a neighbor, be it phoning in back and forth with their parents? And so when we take into account a bunch of factors, what's the maturity of this 9-year-old? We can have a very mature 9, 10-year-old quite capable. We can have some very immature, irresponsible 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds who we'd never want to leave.
So it's the parents' responsibility. But Gary, I know there's a lot of parents out there that are saying, okay, you know what? A couple of weeks ago, we were at the neighbor's place. We're next door. We're 50 feet away. We've got a baby monitor. We can hear what's going on in the room. Are we being neglectful? We're sitting out in our patio while the kids are in another room somewhere. We're putting a lot of pressure on parents now. Do they have to have these kids in their sight 24 hours a day? Can they leave them alone? And under what circumstances can they leave them alone?
we know that these kids are not going to be in our sight 24 hours a day. But typically when they're in our own home, in their own bed, and we're in the bedroom next door, we're downstairs, there is safety. It's a rarity in Canada, in the province of Ontario, that we have a child snatched from their own bedroom. Happens.
Oh, it happened a couple of years ago in North York.
That's right. But it is a rarity.
Right.
And so we have electronic devices. We can now use video cameras and be in another room. We have the baby monitor and be in another room. These are great strategies so that we actually have continuous supervision of the child.
Because it's not just that extreme scenario of a kidnapping. We're talking accidents as well, if you're even next door with the neighbors.
Yeah. There you go. So with these little ones, we actually want to be within earshot, and whether it's electronically or by virtue of being in the house, whether through the video cameras, we do want to have some eyes, ears available to know what's happening with the wee ones. Otherwise, it's neglect, for crying out loud.
Okay, so Gary, a few years back, my kids were about 11 and 8. We were staying at a hotel. Left them alone, had to leave, left alone for 5 minutes in the room. Was I being a neglectful parent?
Well, there again, it winds up being a judgment call. I don't know the maturity of your 11 and 8-year-old.
Pretty mature, I would say.
Well, so you say.
A little Keith Moon, he threw the TV out the window.
No, if I thought that was going to happen, of course I would have let them go. And there again is the parent. The parent has to determine. Maybe these parents thought, my 4-year-old's pretty sharp. If anything happened to the baby, she'd pick up the phone and call me. I don't know.
Yeah, but at 11 and 8-year-old, they do know how to dial 911 by these ages. You said you were gone for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's a different level of maturity here.
All right, that's social worker Gary Dernfeld. Always a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks so much.
All the best, guys.